After spending time creating a beautiful line drawing, you might find yourself starting proudly at your work, only to realize moments later that it feels a little empty, right? But what if you add lighting and shadows? That artwork instantly comes alive, getting depth and dimension. But here's the question: what's the most efficient way to shade your drawing? And what tools should you use? Today, in the Path of Sketching Episode 3, let's dive into this topic: the efficient shading techniques. If you haven't watched the previous 2 episodes, click here, catch up first, then come back. Trust me, going step by step really matters. Before we jump in, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Feel free to join our Discord community to share your sketches. I'm Daryl, aka your sketching coach. Let's get your sketching skills flying high. First thing first, what tools should we use for shading? My personal recommendation: markers and fountain brush pen, or called water brush. Both can quickly fill large areas using solid shapes. Of course, a pencil tilted on its side can also achieve a similar block shading effect. Overall, though, I believe markers and water brushes are more efficient, but feel free to use whatever suits your personal preference. Now, let's get into the core concept. Let me introduce you the idea of two-value simplification. If you look at real-life reference images, the variation in lighting and shadows can be incredibly complex. Capturing every nuance would take enormous time and effort. The two-value method simplifies these complex tones into just 2 categories: light and shadow. The areas receiving light are bright, areas in shadow are dark. This simple division gives you instant volume and form. If you love watching anime or reading manga, you're probably already familiar with this idea, as it's frequently used in 2D animation and comics. Apply this method to your sketching is incredibly convenient. Knowing this concept, how do we practice it? Real-life photos or advanced drawing often have complicated tonal ranges. Simplify this can be difficult, especially when you are just starting out. But luckily, we have a few tools to help. First, let me quickly show you how to do this in Photoshop. Using the threshold tool, you can easily transform your reference into a simply two-value image. Adjust the slider to get the ideal result, then sketching accordingly. Alternatively, you can switch the image to black and white and apply posterize, setting the number of levels to 2 for a similar effect. What? You don't have Photoshop? No worries. Many of you who watch YouTube regularly may know Proc has also talked about this method. On his website, there's a convenient tool to simplify reference image into limited tones, and you can adjust the number of levels freely. Or, if you prefer physical control, pick an object, place it on your desk, and use a small lab to create your own custom lighting setup. I also recommend 2 extremely helpful apps at the end of this video, but for now, let's keep moving. Now we have the tools and references. It's time to start shading. First, with a pencil, you can shade evenly by using the side of the leaf. Make sure to shade consistently rather than scribbling readily. Hatching is also a viable option. Your goal here is just to clearly indicate the shadow area. Remember, pencil shading depends heavily on pressure, so aim for uniformity. At this stage, avoid overly complicated shading. Master the two-value method first, step by step. Markers are even faster and simpler. Pick your shades and quickly fill the shadow areas. No complexity here at all. For impatient artists like myself, markers are highly recommended. They are a bit expensive, but if you just buy a few gray shades, it's still quite affordable. Different nib shapes offer flexibility, and you can layer markers to get richer values. Just be careful not to overdo it. Next is my personal favorite, the water brush. Fill it with diluted ink or proper mixed watercolor, and you've got yourself a shading powerhouse. Water brushes gives a softer effect than markers. Hold it upright for thin strokes, or tilt it to quickly cover larger areas. Again, layering can create varied tones. Just remember to keep it moderate. Alright, we've covered the essential tips. it's time for a demonstration. Are ready? Follow along, let's shade together. Let's start with this elderly man's portrait as a demonstration. We'll skip the line sketching phase this time and jump straight into shading. Our first consistent is the water brush. Since I've already indicated the basic shapes and locations of shadows in my initial sketch, all we need to do now is simply follow the reference and fill in those areas. For large areas, I'll use the side of the brush to quickly lay down broad strokes. For edges and small details, I'll use the tip of the brush to gain precise control. This whole process will go quite quickly, thanks to the efficiency of the water brush. You'll see your artwork dramatically improve in real time. Also, since we used the helpful reference tools I mentioned earlier, identifying shadow shapes becomes straightforward, significantly reducing the complexity. Honestly, I think the result looks fantastic. However, I must remind you not to become overly dependent on such aids. Developing your observation skills to distinguish shadow and light areas is essential in the long run. Alright, done. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? Now, let's try the marker technique next. Using a finer marker tip, we'll outline the shadows around the cat's face first. Then, for the body and back area, I'll use the chisel nib, varying between its flat and side surfaces for thicker or thinner strokes. Markers initially make the paper slightly wet, causing the color to appear darker at first, but once dry, it will lighten up. I'm using a very light gray here deliberately to keep the contrast subtle initially, leaving room for additional layering later on. Markers are extremely efficient tools for quick shading, with the eyes quickly refined using a black brush pen. This quick sketch is essentially complete. Here's the final result. I'll create another dedicated video later to demonstrate a more detailed marker rendering technique. Oh, friend, that was a fantastic drawing session. Are you feel inspired and ready for sketch? Come on, grab your tools and start drawing. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed this video. I'll see you soon. Keep practicing. Bye-bye. Alright, now, let me share two fantastic apps I mentioned earlier. The first one is called Head Model Studio. This app gives you a simplified, block-based head model. You can freely adjust the angles and lighting. It's incredibly easy to use for practicing your head sketches. The second one is Magic Poser. This app offers some complete posable human figures. You can freely adjust viewing angles, lighting positions, and most importantly, easily change the poses. Pretty amazing, right? With this, you don't need to master complicated software. Just pick a pose, set your lighting, and start sketching. Both apps have free versions available, but you can also upgrade for more features if you like. It's all completely up to you.